Hey, everybody. Welcome to Business Insights with Matt Milia. And I am super excited today because I've got a superstar in the room and even a phenomenal ex-NFL player. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges, some of the ways that he's overcome, and really how you can apply this to your business today. But first, I'm going to cue that intro and we'll get rolling. Welcome to Business Insights with Matt Milia. I'm your host, Matt Milia, and in this podcast, we'll talk about the real, raw, uncut business success secrets you won't find anywhere else. Follow my journey from entry level to CEO. We discuss real actionable items you can plug into your business right away. To subscribe to our weekly top tips, you can go to www.mattpodcast.com and join our community of elite high-level performers. And if you're interested in our inside sales company, you can go to www.appointmentstoday.com to jump on a free strategy call. And now, stay tuned for our podcast. All right. What's happening, Marcus? How are you?
How you doing, Matt? Doing well. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you for jumping on today. I'm super excited to interview you and have you share a little bit about your story. And for everyone that is watching as well, there's an amazing book he just put out called The Success Cycle. True story. I usually read about 20-ish books a year. And what I'll do is I listen to the audiobook, so I'll re-listen to them on a weekly basis. And I'll usually take a book that I'll listen to. I'm in between. Literally, I had a book I was already listening to. And then I talked to Marcus, and he said, hey, you got to check out my book. And I'm really glad I did. So, Marcus, if you would tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Marques Ogden. I'm from Washington, D.C. originally. I currently live now in Raleigh, North Carolina with my wife and two daughters. I am a national, international keynote speaker, executive coach, consultant, best-selling author. I'm a former NFL athlete. I've been doing this now for 7 years, had a lot of trials and tribulations to get started. I didn't get a paid job, Matt, for 2.5 years. I've now, in the last 4.5 years, worked for 17 Fortune 500 companies. Of the 17, 10 are Fortune 100. I've also been a guy that had to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I had my home foreclosed on, both cars repossessed. I've been a guy that's made millions of dollars. I've been a guy that made $8.25 an hour on the graveyard shift. $8.25 an hour as a custodian working the night shift. So I've been up, I've been down, I've been high, I've been low. But I will tell your audience that I'm very real, authentic. So whatever you ask me, I'm going to answer honestly and help people that are watching with their businesses.
I love that. And one of the biggest takeaways I had from your book, and this is something I've always struggled with, is you always like to tell everybody, oh man, here's the success, here's where I'm at, here's what I've done. And then you have this almost inner turmoil that's like, well, shouldn't you tell people a little bit about the story and the struggles and the challenges? And you did not shy away from that in your book. Oh. And I mean, I love that because that is always, it's sometimes tough for some people to just put that out there and just, hey, it's not all rose-colored glasses. And I mean, what are, for you, looking at life through like that lens, I mean, what are some things that you've had to learn along the way, and especially any takeaways that you've got from the NFL?
So what I've had to learn is anything worth having takes time to build. And if you're not willing to put in the time, the hard work, and build the foundation, then it doesn't matter. I actually had lunch today with one of my colleagues and a friend of his. They just got their realtor license. I told them both, very exciting times for them, but also I'm going to be real with you. There's a lot of people who get into the realty game. There's a lot of people who are cutthroat. There's a lot of people who really don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of people that just want to make a quick check. It's a very crowded space. And to succeed in it, you have to understand some key principles. You need to build your business off these 3 foundations: operational excellence, quality product, excellent customer service. And if you don't do that, you're going to be like most realtors who end up burning out and not getting to the top. And it takes a long time. It takes processes and systems. But again, if you're going to build something, Matt, worthwhile, you have to actually build a foundation of the business, and then you can take it vertical from there.
Love it. And I mean, it takes a lot of mental toughness to go through some of the things that you've gone through, some of the challenges. And one of the things that really struck me was you had this construction company. You were absolutely killing it in the construction company. And I loved how you talked about where people would come to you and say, hey, you were in the NFL. I know you can invest some money. Why not invest this money into whatever it is that they're doing? How did you, I guess, limit the distractions? And then you had this amazing company. How did you limit some of the distractions and people that were coming at you? How did you kind of offset that?
So what I did was for the 6 months I was off, I was kind of just to myself an introvert. And then when I got into side to do a business, I hired a business attorney, a business lawyer, downtown Baltimore. And anybody that came to me for a business opportunity had to go to them and had to be vetted through them. If you got past them, then we sat down to talk. If you didn't get past them, no offense, nothing personal, I wasn't going to work with you. And I tell people all the time, you need to establish systems and processes. That's one of my 6 real estate, career, or life, whatever you want to call it, value drivers, is systems and processes. You have to have internal process, you have to have external process, you have to have conflict resolution when something comes up and it goes wrong, which it almost always does. So by developing those processes for my business, when I got out of football, before I started my construction company, my attorneys were handling that. So if they didn't approve of you, then you never got to me to have a discussion.
Oh, okay, that's good. So you had those barriers in place, which is great, and that's like having an administrative person or the inside sales rep for your business that's going through everything prior to them even getting to you. So that's good. So you were insulated. Tell me a little bit about, so I know you worked a job that's very challenging for anyone who got to such a level of success and then went all the way from that construction company, and then you did janitorial work. I mean, what are some lessons that, things you learned from that, and how did it not, and a pride factor, how were you able to take that and just put your pride aside and just do it?
Well, when you have a family, you have responsibilities, and you have bills, your ego is gone at the door. And that's what happened to me. And what I learned most about working as a custodian in September 2013 to March 2014 is that people are people. And someone might have a job for a custodian making $8, $10 an hour. Doesn't mean they're any better, worse, than as a person than a CEO making, if you're like, say you're Bill Demchek, they're a client of my PNC, making $25, $30 million a year. Your bank account is going to be, on massive F, but doesn't mean your person, your characteristics are massive F on that full level. And when I was a custodian, I was treated literally by most people like I was inhuman. I didn't exist. I would say good morning to people, never spoke to me. No one knew I was an NFL athlete. No one knew that was my prior job where I was an 8-figure a year CEO. They just saw me as a custodian who was dirty, who had, junk on his shoes, who had, was tired and had ripped gloves on or ripped sweatpants, just working my shift from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m. and just saw that. That's all they saw. And the result of that, I learned, and I always knew, but I never forgot. I always told myself that I was ever able to get out of the situation, rise as a phoenix from the ashes, and get my life back on track. I will always be the same person, no matter what. The same humbleness, attitude I have today will follow me wherever I go. If I stay at the bottom, fine. If I rise to the top, same person. So every time I ask me to do a podcast, do an interview, talk to somebody, get on the phone, I don't have this attitude like, I'm a successful keynote speaker. I'm a successful businessman. I'm a 2-time best-selling author. You're not worth my time. Yeah, I had that attitude when I lost Kayden Premier Enterprises. That's exactly why I lost the company. Ego-driven, arrogant, and just a horrible boss and not a good sound leader. As a result of that, I ended up going bankrupt. So I'll never, ever get there. So basically the thing I learned being a custodian is people are people. Everyone deserves the respect that you want to give someone, that you want back, no matter what their title is, how much they make. And if you treat people like that, that's the best way you can live your life.
Such a massive takeaway. And I mean, it's funny because when I even reached out to you, we'd never talked before. And I was like, hey, I'd love to have you on because I've been following. I watched you were just in Hesh's office. You also Todd Crockett told me a little bit about you. Shout out to all of them. They had said that, hey, you were phenomenal. You were helping them grow. And after I heard that, I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to reach out, put myself out there. And that was one of the things too, you even put in the book was, hey, people are people, reach out there. Don't be afraid to take those chances, take those risks. And then you even talked about working for free for a while to break into different industries that you wanted to be a part of. And one of those was the speaking, being a professional speaker, being out in front of people. That in itself is just awe-inspiring. And even before I did this, I mean, this was something I was always nervous about doing, podcasting and being out, being real open with everybody. But I got so many takeaways just from that book, which for everyone that's watching, I did post in the comments the book. It is Game Changer, the Success Cycle, game-changing book. And what was the motivation behind the book?
The book was written to give people a very simplistic plan to achieve success in their life. 3 things turned my life around from a custodian 7 years ago, approximately, to a national, international keynote speaker today. Number 1 was ambition. I defined my goals. I created my blueprint for myself, and I stuck to it no matter how hard it was. And again, it was 30 months of either no for every paid speaking job or yes for everything free. I didn't get a paid job for 30 months. The second one is drive. Be inspired over motivated. If you're motivated for money, for short-term gain, for fame, for notoriety, if you're not passionate about what you do, you will burn out. You cannot allow exterior motives, again, financial gain, fame, prosperity, to drive you towards success. That's exactly what I did with Kayden. That's exactly why I went bankrupt at the 5.5-year mark. And the last one is hard work. Focus on yourself, not the competition. Yes, know what the competition is doing, but don't focus every second, day. I call it, don't get caught up in the social media comparison game. Oh, they're traveling here. Oh, they're doing that. Oh, they bought this new Bentley. You have no idea what someone's life is like behind closed doors. That's why when I post things, it's real. If I'm traveling, yes, I'm traveling. I've earned it. I don't post things that are unreal. I mean, I don't have a fancy car. I mean, I've had Hummers and Escalades, and I've had all these type of things. We have Honda Accords. I mean, that's what we have. That's who we are. And that's the point of the matter is I don't want to get into a lifestyle where we can't keep up with ourselves, where we have to keep up with the Joneses. And a lot of people, if they get into that social media comparison game, they spend outside their means. The next thing you know, bam, they have no savings. They have no plan. And that's exactly what happened to a lot of people in Corona. People weren't expecting. They would say, I'm always going to make checks. I'm always going to make checks. Well, when you stop making checks, you have nothing put away. What happens then? The bills don't stop. So again, we wrote this book to help people, if they're either a beginner, intermediate, expert, wherever they are, if they're trying to ascend to a higher level. The book was written to give you a blueprint of how I did it, how I went from a $8 an hour custodian to now a national, international keynote speaker and coach and author. That was the ambition, drive, hard work, repeat.
It's really great to read your book, because you could tell that you're not sitting there beating your chest the whole time saying how great you are and that you're the greatest and you're the best. You really do go into some very authentic, genuine challenges, but you also make it, like you said, you make it extremely relatable. And being that you were in the NFL, I have a funny story about a guy I used to work with in mortgages. That was my background. I started off in mortgages. I had a guy that played for the Frankfurt Galaxy. He was in one of the, I think that's like the German league.
The NFL Europe League. Yep.
Yeah, and then so he went into the NFL and got a job on special teams for the Detroit Lions. And it was funny because he was playing when Barry Sanders was playing. Okay. And he would tell me all about Barry Sanders, and he would say, well, Barry had times where he'd have checks and he didn't even know where they were. But he was telling me that a lot of the guys that were there, like everybody was trying to keep up with everybody on the team, and he felt almost out of place, which was one of the best things I read in your book. Was you had even said there were times you had felt out of place because you watch all these guys that were, and I'm not saying Barry Sanders per se, singling him out, but he's an amazing football player. But a lot of those guys were putting money on display, and then there's challenges when you when you get out of the NFL, you get out of that limelight where you don't have as much to show for it. How did you get out of that whole? I mean, how did you get out of that? How did you learn lessons from that? Because
I learned from my brother. My brother was in the NFL before I was, 7 years, and he saved money. He invested wisely. He did not spend frivolously, and I learned that from him. Our father was an economics major in college, worked in the financial industry, taught us a lot of lessons as we were growing up. So we actually had money in our hands. We knew that doesn't mean it's going to come forever. You have to set yourself up for a rainy day. And that's exactly why I went bankrupt. I have a degree in finance, but I treated my business like a person, and I dumped all of my money into a project expecting to get paid back like I was promised through a handshake. And when that declined, it did not come through. I had nothing in reserves. My bills were still there. I had a mortgage still. I had car payments still. I had credit card bills still. And I was tapped out. And the only choice I had was to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy to try to eliminate 177 creditors. And I had $5.5 million of debt amassed through the business. That's why I filed a bankruptcy, because I did not keep things for a rainy day. After spending the money, I trusted the client, I went all in, and I got taken advantage of. All my fault, didn't have to do it. Trusted somebody, learned a lesson, you move on. And that's where I'm at today.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think how many business owners, athletes, people that have had to, and I know you brought up COVID. I mean, a lot of people didn't save for that rainy day. They didn't have cash set aside. And I mean, 2019 for us was one of the best years we had ever had. And it was funny because my tax advisor was giving me hell when we were going through the numbers. He's like, "Why did you keep so much money in the bank?" I go, "I don't know why. I just have a feeling that, I want to make sure that I got some cash. I'd rather pay a little bit more in the taxes than have to worry about paying myself a big payday. I want to make sure that I can keep the business sustainable." So, and I mean, I really respect that, because he was very unhappy. He's like, "Well, I got to find all these different tax loopholes." I'm like, "Listen, something tells me that, I just need to make sure that I stay focused, and I'll find other vehicles to move that around." So, I mean, there was a lot of learning lessons for me going into this year, but I was fortunate. I had those good disciplined habits from the prior year that just made a world of difference.
Right.
So, taking a different avenue, talking a little bit about your book that you have out now. For everyone that is listening, I've read so many books, and I got to say, yours was probably one of the most relatable, where you could actually take what you're saying in there and apply it instantly. And it was a lot about behavioral habits, but you weren't just talking about, "Oh, well, you should know how to do this." You weren't just touching on it. You were going in depth with it and actually making it relatable to everybody. Was that something that was important to you when you wrote the book?
Of course, because telling someone what to do versus giving them the steps and showing them what to do is different. Like there's an old saying, "Do what I do, don't do what I say." And we wanted to make it where people could actually see the book, read it, apply it to their own life, do some of the different action steps and then some of the different exercises in the book to actually make it where they could apply it to their life quickly and efficiently. Not have to wonder, guess, go try to find a piece of paper, go try to find something to write down, break out your phone. So when you're reading the book, certain parts of the book are going to have exercises, they're going to have action steps, it's going to have quizzes, things you can actually do and write out right in the book, right there. So you can just kind of you don't have to break your train of thought and you keep moving forward. And in business, if you have strong operational excellence, you have a great quality product, and you have great customer service, you can get wherever you want to go. And we really made this book simplistic, so no matter who read it, they could apply it to their everyday life very quickly, easily, and effectively.
Love it. And I mean, we have some great comments. It makes a difference. When you show people what to do instead of telling them basically telling them, I mean, you're actually giving them the roadmap for success. And that in itself is a huge game changer. I'm in the middle of reading Traction right now. And it was funny. I put Traction on hold and I started reading through and I go, wow, there's some similarities here. So have you ever read Traction, by the way?
I've heard about it. Yeah, I haven't read it, but I've heard good things about it.
Phenomenal book. And I know you talked a lot about systems as well. And for everyone that's on here, the last thing I wanted to ask you here before we sign off, one of the things that for someone like yourself who's learned all these lessons, what's something that you would tell your past self? What's one of the lessons that you would, share with a younger version of yourself?
I would tell Marcus, and I'd say this all the time in speaking to corporations, especially to salespeople, don't get mesmerized by early success. Success can come and go in the blink of an eye. When I built my organization, our company, Kayden Premier, one of my best employees tried to let me know, Marcus, we're spending too much money on this job site in downtown Baltimore at the health laboratory. We're not getting our other jobs done. We're not focusing. We're not delegating our resources properly to the jobs that we have. And as a result of that, our bills are going to be down. Our cash is going to be depleted. And if we don't make a switch now, we're going to be in trouble. Instead of listening to him and having an open dialogue and having healthy inclusion and respecting his words, I shunned him. And that was on a Friday. The following Monday, he comes to the office. He hands me his 2-week resignation papers. The last thing he said to me is, Marcus, I'm really sorry this didn't work out. And I pray that you make a change. Because if you don't, in 6 months, you're going to be bankrupt. I shook his hand and said, Colin, thank you for the job. Great work. And I wish you about the best. He is still working for that same company. 6 months later, like he predicted, bam, we went bankrupt. We lost it all because we ended up overextended on that project. The other jobs we weren't doing, we couldn't bill. So no billings going out, cash depleted from internally. No one repaid the change order. I'm stuck. I've got no capital. I've got no assets. I got no bills. I got no staff. I've got no line of credit. I've got nothing in place to operate the business. Like you had cash on hand, I had nothing. And by the time I turned around, it was February of 2013. I looked in the bank account and I told Bonnie, who was my girlfriend, who's now my wife, that this is it. We're finished. And that next week I go to the NFL, talk to them. They helped me devise a plan. And in April 2013, I packed up like the old Colts when they left Baltimore in that Mayflower truck. I packed up, I didn't tell anybody, and I left. And I was out. And all my employees were gone, but my partner was still trying to hold into the business, and he had some money put away. He had a house that he owned. I had nothing. The house was upside down, negative equity. I couldn't pay the mortgage, couldn't pay the truck payments, couldn't pay anything. And, that was it. We had company trucks and assets stolen from our yard, laptops. Someone actually stole a brand new F-250 pickup truck that we had bought with the company. It was total mutiny. And after that, I was gone. And then that's when I moved from Baltimore to Raleigh. And I moved here in 2013. I've been here ever since.
Wow. That's amazing. And you're still a Ravens fan, I heard, right?
I am. I will always be. That will never change. I've always been a Ravens fan, and I've been a Ravens fan, a Bills fan. I love the Titans. I love the Jaguars. They're amazing teams, and I of course cheer for them. But the Ravens have been a brother's team, my hometown team. We both played for them. I lived in Baltimore for 8 years, and then the Bills are my clients today. I do speaking for them around certain topics. So they're one of my best clients, and they are a great organization. They're doing well right now. They've lost the last 2 against some tough opponents, but they've got a good team, a good nucleus. So I think they're going to do well for the long haul.
I'm starting to wonder if we made a mistake on our quarterback, because I do like Josh Allen. And it was funny because when I first saw him play, I'm like, man, this guy's got a crazy arm, but I don't know if he can get that under control. But I mean, last game wasn't a great game, but I mean,
2 touchdowns, 122 yards. It's not great, but those interceptions.
Right.
The problem with Baker Mayfield, and I've said this from day one, he has a lot of flash and pizzazz, all that great, but he's not poised. And when things get tight on him, he doesn't respond well. And if you're going to play quarterback in the National Football League, if things get tight, which they do, losing games, fans, the media, bad day at home, bad day at work. If you don't know how to be poised, inspire people, have a victory mindset, observe, and be a tactician, which is the acronym PIVOT. If you can't pivot when times call for it, you are finished. And that's the problem with Mayfield. He is very good. He's very talented. He's very athletic. He's tough as nails. but he's not calm, cool, and collective under pressure. It's just like being a leader in an organization. Your main job is to create a sense of calm and order to the team, and to to encourage the expression of diverse opinions. And you need to be able to resolve conflict if and when it arises. And the Browns don't have that. That's exactly why the Cowboys are struggling right now. There's a rumor that the players are not happy with the coaches. I saw this one coming. Like, they've had 5 games with 30 points or more scored on them. I'm like, yep, the easiest person to blame for them is going to be Mike Nolan. And it's now the train has started. Mike Nolan's no good. Our coaches aren't preparing us. They're rookies. They don't know how to adjust on the fly. And this is exactly why the Cowboys will not win until they get a more, I don't want to say stern coach, but a more structured coach who can actually help set the bar from a specific position of getting policy and procedure back in order. Once they do that, they'll have a chance. But until then, the Cowboys are in a lot of trouble. And that's why teams like the Seattle is doing well under Pete Carroll. The Steelers are doing well under Mike Tomlin. The Ravens under Coach Harbaugh. These are teams that have a good structure, a good culture. And I'll lead with this. To set and maintain a culture for any business, it's the behaviors, right, plus the time it takes to develop those behaviors, multiplied by the employees of the company, sets your culture. The behaviors plus the time to establish those behaviors, multiplied by the employees, equals your culture. If the culture's bad, go back to the behaviors. And then if they're not aligned to your mission or vision, there's your problem, fix it. If you don't fix it, the culture will never, ever get any better.
Love that. I wish you had a mic. You just drop it right there. It was awesome. Good closeout. Marques, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, for everybody, the link is in the comments for his book. Phenomenal book. I cannot recommend it enough. Go on, check it out. Marques, again, thank you so much. And have an amazing day for everyone that's watching. We'll see you guys same time, same place next week. Thank you, Marques.
Have a good one, Matt.
You too.